So first question number 1, what do you understand by the term personal genomics? Analyze the prospects of this new emerging technology in India. So when you look at this question, it has two parts. The one, they just ask you about personal genomics. And the second part of the question says analyze the prospects. Now when we can say, or when we can speak about a prospect of becoming a civil servant. Now we are an aspirant, prospect of becoming. It depends upon how much we are preparing, how much we are putting our effort, and toughness of the exam. Challenge. Where I am, what is the challenge? And if I meet the challenge, I am becoming an officer. That's what a prospect is, right? In the same breath here, what is the present status of personal genomics now? Right. And in terms of treatment regimens in India, what is the present status? In this present status, how the personal genomics will add value? But we have to see the challenges also. Only then the prospect will become complete. So, what are the challenges that you can expect in a personal genomics? In adopting this new technology, when we speak about prospects, you have to say about the present status, then how personal genomics can add value, then you have to address challenges. And only then identifying the prospect, like whether personal genomics will succeed or not. This is what called as prospecting. So your answer should contain these three important aspects. You can use any point. This is a common ground. You have to speak about what the personal genomics in general means. Because it's a general question, there is no specific, for example, they haven't asked about technical features of an act, or they haven't asked you to critically analyze a rule. Now that becomes a specific question. Now this is a generalized question. Your answer can also be generalistic. You don't have to rely upon facts too much here. If a question is specific, your answer also need to be specific. You don't have much of a choice. So first you have to identify, is it a specific question or a generalistic question? It's a generalistic question. You can also style your answers more generalistic. But better if you give more examples. Some examples if you provide, that is well and good. So what do you understand by the term personal genomics? So what does the personal genomics means? We are all humans. Humans have a common genome. But every individual is different. You and me are different. So despite having a common genome, every individual is different. This is what the beginning of the personal genomics is. So the personal genomics as a field, it began with the emergence of Human Genome Project in 1990. It is with the Human Genome Project, sequencing the human genome, that the field of personal genomics had started. The point is, the personal genomics, it's created a reference genome, not individual genome. The Human Genome Project of 1990, it created a reference genome, a model genome for all humans. It is not an individual genome of each humans living in the earth. So this is the beginning of the personal genomics, where the genetic constituent of each individual, is created, analyzed for diseases. Individual genome is created, analyzed for diseases, and personalized treatments are provided. So personal genomics can provide personalized treatment. It can lead to personalized treatment. So this is what personal genomics means, what it means. What the personal genomics means. Now, in the answer given in the PDF, I have given some other examples related to that also. You can see that in the PDF. Now let's see prospects in India. So India, with the second largest population, with a very high genetic diversity, generalized medicine is quite well developed, even to the level of medical tourism. generalized medicine in our country is well developed to the level of medical tourism. We all know India is a preferred destination for high-end patient care, which is referred as medical tourism. But in the field of personalized genomics, India is still in a nascent stage. Now this speaks about the status. This speaks about the status. You're setting the stage. Now the burden. In terms of disease burden, many Indians suffer from genetic diseases. To add a fact, about 1.73 million Indians suffer from genetic diseases by 2020. This is a disease burden. This sets a prospect for such a personalized genomics. So by developing personalized genomics, such a large number of genetic diseases can be holistically dealt with. By developing personal genomics, such a large number of genetic diseases can be holistically dealt with. Now, what about the present status of the industry? Only few industries are mushrooming here and there. So, some recent development in this regard is genome patry, some important private sector who developed expertise in this area. Genome patry, P-A-T-R-A, genome patry, MedGenome, M-E-D, MedGenome, genome patry in Hyderabad, MedGenome in Bangalore, Strand Life, Strand, S-T-R-A-N-D, Strand Life Sciences in Bangalore. So these were the few private companies who offer personalized genomics in India, but at a very high cost. It is not cheaper, it is at a very high cost. So this is the first. What is the present status? In terms of challenge, high price. It is at a nascent stage. It is a very highly pricey treatment which may not be affordable to the present largely poor Indian population. Second is high price. And the third is, any technology can reach the mass only with the help and aid of government initiatives. There is almost a lack of government initiative in this regard. Government has not taken any initiative on understanding, on mass undertaking of research and development in this field. Without government intervention, it is not possible that the cost will fall down. So lack of government initiative, that's a third prospect. And the next is, there are only very few scientific studies. There are only very few scientific studies in understanding the genetic diversity of the population. How one community and other community is different genetically. Without this knowledge, personal genomics may not be much of help. So this is the status and the challenges. First we saw the status, and now the challenges we have seen. So now what is the conclusion we can speak about? Personalized genomics considers the patient as a center point. It's a patient-centric regimen, because every person genome is unique. So it keeps the patient at its center. Personalized genomics is a patient-centric treatment process, and hence any development in this field must always comes at the cost of the patient. It always comes. It's a patient-centric. Must always comes at the cost of the patient. Unless the previous mentioned challenges are addressed, it may not take roots in India, at least in the near future. This is a prospect. This is what we can say, analysis of the prospect, right? And that is one of the mistake we commonly do it. Irrespective of the question, we always identify the failures and we always provide measures, recommendations. Don't follow the style. Unless otherwise it is explicitly requested for. Do not very generalistically give recommendations or measures for all the questions. It's unworthy. It's not wrong, but you will not be rewarded. You will not get any credits for those areas. It takes away your time. Why do you have to spend your effort for an area which does not give you any marks? So unless otherwise it is specifically mentioned as raised, Do I have to give suggestions? No. For this question, it's not. It just asks you to mention about the prospects. So for this question, it is not required. Third question, question number 3. With an increase in urbanization and motorization of Indian roads, assess the health risks due to vehicular transportation in India. This is also another open-ended question. There is no specificity included here. It is also another open-ended. But here we are linking some important aspects. Urbanization, motorization, entry of more motor vehicles into the roads. So what might occur due to the urbanization? The question literally says this. Okay, on the one hand, urbanization occurs. Urbanization means roads. And this, on the other hand, motorization also occurs. Motorization of road occurs. On the other hand, when both of these occur together, what are the health impacts that it will cause? I have explained the question. The question clearly says assess the health risk. Assess means what? Like kind of weigh. You have to weigh. Or we can say this another way, list out. If you say this in other words, just list out. Now, if you look at this question, with an increase in urbanization and motorization, do I have to speak about urbanization for this question? Do I have to speak anything about urbanization for this question? Urbanization and the health risks. Whether we have to speak about that? Urbanization and health risks? Okay. Do we have to speak about motorization of Indian roads? See, if you say yes to urbanization, you have to say yes to motorization also. You cannot be biased. You do for both or you do for nothing. With an increase in urbanization and motorization of Indian roads, assess the health risk due to vehicular transportation. See, you do one thing. So for this question also, you can write about urbanization leading to motorization, leading to health risks. That's a connection, right? It's like a flow chart. Urbanization leading to motorization, leading to health risks. You can briefly mention in introduction. You don't have to substantiate anything about urbanization and health risks. Motorization, obviously health risk. Right? So you don't have to do anything with that first part. If you have a doubt, block the area. If the rest of the question still makes sense, you have to answer only for that part. Or you do one thing, you block the second part. You block the assess health risks. With an increasing urbanization and motorization of Indian roads, is it complete? It is not complete. So you don't have to substantiate for anything for this part, right? So assess the health risks. It simply asks about enlisting the health impacts. So, and rapid urbanization with an increase in per capita income. This is what I just briefly touched the first part of the question. A rapid urbanization with an increase in per capita income. What happened? Urbanization and an increase in per capita income led to an easy access to motor vehicles. Everybody is now able to buy vehicles. An easy access to motor vehicles. This easy access to motor vehicles resulted in motorization. You see, I am taking the word from the question itself, which resulted in various health impacts of the modern times. These health impacts we haven't known in the past. These were we knew only recently. This is what I would say as introduction for this question. If you want, you can speak about, you can give urbanization rate also if you want, but it doesn't get much marks because it has nothing to do with the question. If you want, you can provide it. Now, what are the important health impacts? We can speak that's due to motorization of Indian roads. Can we just say a few? Yes? Respiratory illness, okay? Noise pollution, yes. Lung cancer, yes. Yes. Accidents, road accidents, that acquires a top priority. With increasing motorization, with more vehicles plying the roads, there is an increase in the road accidents also. So increase in road accidents. As I said earlier, factual points is given in the PDF. So an increase in the road accidents. The second, what has happened due to motorization? Now people, even if they want to move from one street to the next street, even if they want to buy banana, they go in Audi car. So how can we, so what it resulted in? Increasing motorization? Physical inactivity. There is a growing physical inactivity. What this resulted in? Which resulted in rise of lifestyle diseases or non-communicable diseases. A rise in the non-communicable diseases due to physical inactivity. It's a second reason, health impact. And according to non-communicable diseases survey, NCD survey 2015, 1 in 4 Indians, according to NCD survey 2015, 1 in 4 Indians are prone to lifestyle diseases. What could be the third impact? An increase in vehicular emissions and air pollution. An increase in vehicular emissions and air pollution leading to, what it leads to? Leading to exposure to carcinogenic substances such as PAH, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. PAH. Respiratory irritants such as ozone. Carcinogenic substances such as PAH, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, respiratory irritants such as ozone, and climate altering gases and climate altering gases. The next is community noise. A rise in the community noise, or we can say this another way, that leads to noise pollution. That leads to noise pollution exceeding 80 decibels. Exceeding 80 decibels. As we all know, if the noise level goes beyond 85, it results in permanent deafness. It depends from one individual to another, 85 to 120. If this limit is exceeded, it results in permanent deafness. So such motorization also results in permanent deafness. Those who are living on the roadsides, are very much prone to these diseases. The next one is dementia. According to a recent study, the people who are living on the roadside, heavy traffic, the people who are living along the heavy traffic are prone to dementia. Dementia is a deteriorating memory and behavior. A deteriorating memory and a behavior is dementia, and people who are living very close to heavy traffic, according to a recent study in Canada, are very much prone to dementia. So this is just a list. That's it. The question is, it doesn't expect much more than this. Just enlisting. If you added any of the health impacts, that's well and good, as long as it pertains to motorization and health impacts. Fifth question. On one hand, India aspires to become economic giant among the world nations, economic superpower. Do you consider India as a giant in science and technology, scientific superpower? We aspire to become economic superpower. Are we scientific superpower now? Whatever stance you take, whether you say that India is a scientific superpower, provide some suitable measures. How do we improve it? If you say that India is not a scientific superpower, provide some measures. So this question has 3 parts. If you look at the question, it says on one hand, India aspires to become economic giant among the world nations. Now this part, you think it has any relevance to the rest of the part? It sets a stage. This part of the question, it sets the stage. It actually compares. On one hand, we are economic supergiant. We want to become economic giant. On the other hand, we have to become scientific supergiant. It is this the important part of the question, not the first one. It sets the stage. So you don't have to speak much about. Your answer should not elaborate much on the economic prowess of the country. You don't have to speak much about economic prowess, but your answer must speak about what is the present performance of India in the science and technology, whether this performance makes it enough for us to conclude that India is a superpower or not. So how can we make an answer? Let's say that India is a superpower. Let's say that you decide that India is a superpower. How would you substantiate that? First, we have to elaborate on how much India had achieved. What are the achievements of India in the field of science and technology? Give some examples. Now, it should not be biased opinion. You have to present what are the failures also. Then in what aspects that Indian scientific sector is not up to the mark. The failures of S&T in India. Only when you present both, you can come to the conclusion whether India is an scientific superpower or not. So this question, if you say, do you consider India as a giant in science and technology? You can present the answer in whatever style, but it has to be equal in its approach. You should not speak only about the success. That India launched 104 satellites in a single launch doesn't make India as a scientific superpower. India had an expertise in operating pressurized heavy water nuclear reactors in general, pressurized heavy water reactors in particular. India had an indigenous nuclear program. These are all the success. But there are other failures also in the Indian science and technology. Now, without speaking about the both, you cannot conclude that India is a scientific superpower. So, for this question, if you answer only about the achievements of country, it is only partial answer. You have to present both, then come to the conclusion whether, in this condition, whether it is a scientific superpower or not. Then you have to provide some solutions. Right? So, how can I make an answer like that? The question doesn't ask present the achievements and failures of science and technology, but how can I develop in this way, like what I have said. So, the key is approach the question as a common person, common layman, convert it into own terms. If you do it in your own terms, the points will flow. And after that, just organize the points in whatever order. And rest is only writing. Just writing. So, that's why I told you, if you generally see that, your answer will go in a different direction. If you answer only India as a giant, you tend to speak only about achievements. You might not speak about the failures. Okay, so now this is the style required for this question. So according to Global Capital Confidence Barometer, according to Global Capital Confidence Barometer Technology Report, Global Capital Confidence Barometer Technology Report, India, third most attractive destination. India is the third most attractive destination for technology. Third most attractive destination for technology. That's a fun point. So we are speaking about the achievements of India. It's a prime destination for investments, scientific investments first. And the second, we all know, you would have write all these points in essay. Whenever there is a speak about science and technology, when it comes in essay, we say scientific technology also contributes to the economy growth. Scientific technology of the time, of the generation, contributes to the economy growth. Fine. So, now we are going to the same. Since India became independence, there is a state support for research and development in India. Since we became independent, and there is a constant support from the government for research and technology. It is mainly because of the state support that India had achieved quite much in this high niche area. To quote, now say to quote, you can write whatever you remember as achievements. This is very exhaustive list. So you can say 2 or 3 achievements, what India had done best. I have included like India's uniqueness, indigenization of the nuclear power program, space programs, extraplanetary missions, I have added 3 or 4 examples, but as I said earlier, it's up to you. Whatever the success comes to your mind, you can add it up. So this is a success. But now comes the next one. Not everything is bright. The challenge is now. The challenge is the challenge that Indian science and technology faces is over-bureaucratization. Over-bureaucratization, low spending as a percentage of GDP. Low spending as a percentage of GDP and rigid education system. How can we call ourselves as a superpower considering these challenges? So, the Technology Vision 2035. The Technology Vision 2035 released during 103 Indian Science Congress. The Technology Vision 2035 released during 103rd Indian Science Congress 2016. Even this Technology Vision 2035 says it requests call for action. This Technology Vision 2035 requests call for action to all the stakeholders. Call for action for all the stakeholders for a long-term sustainability. For a long-term sustainability of India's technological prowess. You understand? Even the document 103rd Indian Science Congress 2016 itself recognizes that India has a long way to go. It calls for action from various stakeholders. Now in this context, how can we call that India is a scientific superpower? So that's one we can point, challenge. If you remember the specific fact, you can bring it out. Otherwise, you can generally speak about other various drawbacks of Indian science and technology. Since 1930, even though in the pre-independent times, is the last time that an Indian got Nobel Prize by S.Sivarajavel. So that was the only Nobel Prize and the last Nobel Prize. The first and the last Nobel Prize that an Indian received to recognize the contribution of an Indian. That was the first and the last, 1930, that too during pre-independent times. Is also a reflection of abysmal condition of Indian science and technology, right? Very low Nobel Prize. And the next is ranking of institutions. Ranking of institutions. You can generally say that Indian institutions are becoming machines of churning degrees. They are becoming institutions, machines of churning out degrees. They don't create researchers, they create degree holders. If you remember specific points, for example, according to QS, according to QS World University Rankings, according to QS World University Rankings, only 2 institutions in India featured in top 500 list. Top 200 list. The one from Indian Institute of Science Bangalore and the second IIT Delhi. So that's the second. Poor institutional capacities. The second which I'm speaking about is poor institutional capacities. That's a failure. And the next is very low governmental support as a percentage of GDP. For example, as of now, gross expenditure on research and development, GERD, stands around 0.9%. GERD stands around 0.9% in India in comparison to South Korea, the highest in the world, constitutes about 3%. With a very low governmental support, South Korea 3%, leading the race. With such a low expenditure, governmental support, India in the near future can aspire to become scientific superpower. So these are the reasons we are saying it is not. And the next point I can say, India has the best and the worst of medical treatment, medical regimen in the world. It has the best as well as the worst. Considering all this, it looks that India made significant achievements, but these achievements are confined to very high-end sectors like nuclear sector, space launches. While in other areas, in terms of bringing science and technology to every door, bringing science and technology to the commoners, yielding the fruits of science to the society, India failed. Even though we achieved in some areas, those areas are high-end areas. In terms of bringing science to the commoners, India failed. So in this context, it cannot be considered as a science superpower. So that way we are coming to the end of this question. Seventh question, analyze the suitability of robotics to the Indian economic development. In this context, what are the challenges in adopting the robotics in India? So analyze means it's like finding faults. Analyze means what? I cannot analyze something if I keep it away from me. If I want to analyze a mistake, I have to keep it close. So analyze means into the details. Analyze means into the details. You have to check each and everything. You have to analyze the parts. Find what is wrong. So analyze the suitability of robotics to Indian economic development. Ask in a common person's view, whether robotics is going to be in any way suitable to India, or is it something suitable only to aging populations where young are not available. When the young hands are not available to man the industries, it is only those countries that this is what you have to think commonly. Okay, fine. But in robotics, which is also called as automation, such an automation, is it good for India? Suitability. Yeah. So let's not go to the answers first. Let's analyze the question first. So analyze the suitability. Is it suitable or not? That's an open-ended question. You might conclude yes. You may conclude no. You can say that no, robotics is not suitable. Robotics will replace the human workforce. Then you have to bring all the points relevant. You have to speak about demography. See, the answer will differ depending upon what stance you take. If you feel that robotics is suitable to the development, take the success story of China, where robotics is immensely adopted, which resulted in cheap manufacturing products. But quality is questioned, but actually robotics, when you speak about it, it is very notable for its cheap as well as quality products. But still, so if you want to speak about the suitability, we have to take the China model, where robotics is very immensely adopted. Or if you want to speak about that, no, robotics cannot be suitable to India, that it will replace human labor, where already unemployment hovers at around 9%. As an average of 9% unemployment rate, adopting robotics will further result in job losses. You can say no, it is not suitable. At least in the current times, it is not suitable. As I said earlier, it depends upon what stance you take. Then what are the challenges? Now this is a general question. What are the challenges for robotics in India? What are the challenges? Always, if a question, try to always see from segmenting the topic. The general segmentation, you could do very general. Political aspects, economic aspects, social aspects, moral aspects. You can see always from this point. Or you can see from other perspective also, from public centric, from private centric, from public centric, from private centric, from academic centric, from industry centric. This is another way. It depends upon what topic you are speaking about. So always try to see from multiple directions. That will give you a holistic view. A hawk eye. You can see from all directions. So challenges in adopting the robotics. Robotics, first it's an academic field, yeah. So what are the academic challenges? The second, robotics should be taken up by the industries. So what are the challenges that industry faces? First academic challenges, then industrial challenges. And third, who will buy robots? The people should buy. The market challenges. So these are the challenges, right? So first, academic challenges, we don't have a quality institutes teaching. We don't have a quality faculty to teach. We don't have a sufficient infrastructure to enable the students to understand the topic. There's a report. We are recreating robotics based on the knowledge that is already existing in the public domain. So that is innovation. So this is from academic perspective. From the industry perspective, there is a great resistance from the labor unions. Labor unions resist adopting robotics on the assumption that it will result in layoffs. There is a resistance from labor unions because it feels that machines will replace human hands, on the assumption that machines will replace human hands. Industry. And the third is, robotics is a multidisciplinary approach. It requires experts from various fields, mechanical engineering. It needs experts from software. It needs experts from hardware. It needs experts from languages, computer languages. It's a multidisciplinary and requires a special skill. India does not have such a skill, either in handling robots or in servicing the robots. So lack of skill in industries. Third, not only skill is available, skill upgradation also does not happen. Lack of skills, lack of skill upgradation. And the third important challenge in industry, what is required to have a robot? Robot requires multiple components which are not manufactured in the country. But the import policy poses strong constraints, limitations. The import policy poses strong constraints for the inflow of goods and parts that are required for assembling robots. That's the next challenge, mainly due to import challenges that the industry faces. Then society. As of now, it is costlier. Because it is costlier, not many can adapt to this robotics. Without mass penetration of the robotics, the market size of robotics in India is very, very limited, very, very small. The market size of robotics in India is very small because people haven't adapted to the robotics. So these are the challenges from multiple perspectives, right? So that part we have addressed. But the first part, analyze the suitability of robotics to the Indian economic development. Recently, our Prime Minister had made one beautiful statement related to that. But actually he used it in a different context, but you can use it here. It's actually, our PM is a great orator and he used to make some phenomenal statements, very eye-opening statements during the launch of GSLV is that India was once a country of, can we remember that? India was once a country of snake charmers. India was once a country of snake charmers, now entices the world with the use of mouse. India was once a country of snake charmers, now surprises the world, entices the world with the use of mouse. So this I'm saying, how robotics, I'm saying putting the stage, how robotics will help in development. So what we are saying, how I'm arguing is that the adoption of robotics to Indian economic development, we have to just say about productivity of the labor force. See, first we have to say how much our Indian labor force is productive. Value addition in the industry is considered to be poor in our country. Value addition. This can be spoken from other perspective, total factor productivity, TFP. Total factor productivity of Indian industries hovers around 1%. You know what this means? Indian labor force is unproductive. So, with such an unproductive human force, an economic development is not possible. We are not analyzing why we are unproductive. That becomes another question. That is not important. We have to say that we are unproductive. Compared to 5.7% of South Korea, highly productive human force. While India, it hovers around 1%. For South Korea, it is 5.7%. So, economic development must be preceded by modernization of the industries. Without the modernization of the industries and adoption of modern technologies, without the modernization of industries and adoption of technologies, economic development is not possible. With India aspiring to become an economic giant to surpass US, if not China, to surpass US, robotics can be a boon to the Indian industries. With such a low productivity, robotics can bring cheaper products without any deterioration in quality. It can bring cheaper products without any deterioration in quality, making the Indian goods competitive. Making Indian goods competitive. So I have taken the position, for this question I have taken the position that yes, robots are suitable to the Indian economic development. Right? And the second part I have already discussed. Yeah.
Is it essential to take a stand for this question?
It's not like you have to take a stance, but it says suitability of robots. So you have to say it is suitable, you have to analyze. Or you have to say unsuitable. It's not directly say, it did not say critically analyze the suitability. What you have to say? You have to speak about what are the reasons for suitability, what are the reasons for non-suitability, you have to give a judgment. That is critical analysis. But this is something more comes of the same. The question says analyze the suitability. You understand the very question style, it asks whether it's suitable or not. It makes you to put it into a position. And because it keeps you to put in a position, you have to take a stance. Now the question, discuss briefly on discuss. It's more like a mini essay. When we use the word discuss, it's more like a mini essay. Start from beginning and till the end. But it's not an essay. As brief as possible. It's a GS. Paper 1, paper 3. So you have to be brief. You don't have to be too elaborate. So discuss briefly on the proposed scientific objectives of Chandrayaan-2 mission in the next year, 2018. What benefits you see the mission will bring to the nation? There is no clear scientific objectives known as of now. The only objective is it will be soft landing and there will be mineral exploration of the lunar surface. This is what we say broadly. So how can I write only about 2 points? No problem. Just add up some other important points. Like it has 3 components: an orbiter, a lander, a rover, to be launched in 2018. You add these points to make the shortage of the points. To counteract the shortage of points, you add relevant points related to Chandrayaan-2. Right. So Chandrayaan-2, the Chandrayaan-2 mission was approved in October 2008 itself with a successful launch of Chandrayaan-1. Even when we launched Chandrayaan-1 in 2008, Chandrayaan-2 mission was approved. In 2010, Chandrayaan-2 was to be launched in close partnership with Russia. But since the failing space agency of the Russian programs, Russia has withdrawn from the program since 2010 and India was compelled to take the mission indigenously. So in 2008 it was announced, in 2010 the mission went indigenous because Russia has backtracked from its association in this program. Now this program, as Chandrayaan-2 is more advanced than the first mission. First mission was an impact probe. Chandrayaan-1 was an impact probe, while Chandrayaan-2 will result in soft landing on the lunar surface. Soft landing on the lunar surface. That's a very critical aspect of Chandrayaan-2, soft landing. That word you have to use. Then, as seen earlier, Chandrayaan-2 mission has 3 components. An orbiter located at about 100 kilometers on the lunar orbit, an orbiter at an altitude of 100 kilometers in the lunar orbit, and the lander module that will execute the soft landing, and an orbiter module an orbiter module for movement, for controlled movement on the lunar surface. For controlled movement on the lunar surface. This is about the mission. Now what will be the benefits? Now usually we can say any technology, if we ask about benefits, you can use this common point. It will open up new opportunities and technologies. Chandrayaan 2 mission, if it's successful, it will open up new technologies and new equipments. The second, we all know Moon is the only natural satellite, right? So a successful Chandrayaan 2 mission will strengthen India's position as a global space power. If Chandrayaan 2 will be successful, it will strengthen India's position as a global space power. That's the second benefit. It will project India's scientific prowess. The next is with what Chandrayaan 2 mission will be launched. So Chandrayaan 2 mission will be launched by using GSLV Mark II. GSLV Mark II. So GSLV Mark II, which will be used to launch Chandrayaan 2, will result in gaining experience in operationalizing cryogenic engine, which will benefit our launching of commercial satellites. We all know that GSLV satellites are very crucial for launching commercial satellites, commercial communication satellites. So this Chandrayaan 2 mission will strengthen our GSLV mission also, naturally. If that is successful, GSLV is also successful. That's the next benefit. And then third is, if Chandrayaan 2 is successful, if it is successful, it is something that can be equated with the success of Mongolian, which created euphoria among the society. So once the Mongolian was successful, before 2 years, it created a wave of search in the scientific temper. So such a euphoria of scientific temper that inspires young generations to pursue scientific education also will happen. It creates a wave of scientific temper if Chandrayaan 2 is successful. So we can say these will be the benefits of this mission. Okay. So it's very easy question. There is no complications in that. The next question, 11th question, write short notes on Indian ballistic missile defense program, explain its significance to national security for India. Now this is also a very non-complicated question. You have to write about BMD, ballistic missile defense program, as much as you can remember. And second, its importance to national security. So Indian ballistic missile defense program, it was initiated after the Kargil War of 1999. The missile defense program was initiated after the Kargil War of 1999 to deal with the dangers from our western border. To deal with the dangers from the western border. It is mainly for that. So the Indian ballistic missile defense program primarily aims to thwart a missile-based attack. It's mainly aimed to thwart, divert, THWART, thwart a missile attack from Pakistan. It is solely for this purpose that this was created. Okay, so the program also supports various private sector industries, which is at a nascent stage in the Indian defense sector. In the Indian defense sector, it is largely dominated by the public sector. But Indian missile defense program, ballistic missile defense program, is participated by various private sector agencies such as L&T, Larsen & Toubro, Astra Microwave, which enhances private participation in Indian defense programs. Okay, that's some uniqueness we are adding into that. So now let's see some brief points about the program itself. So Indian ballistic missile defense program is a double-tiered defense system. It's a double-tiered TIER, double-tiered defense system comprising EXO, and endo-atmospheric shields, comprising exo and endo-atmospheric shields. This defense shield will confer protection against ballistic missiles with a range from 2000 to 5000 kilometers. With a range from 2000 to 5000 kilometer range missiles, the shield can protect from. Now, what it includes? As I said earlier, it's a two-tier defense system. The two-tier defense systems are the one, Prithvi Air Defense, PAD, and Advanced Air Defense, AAD. Prithvi Air Defense, PAD, and Advanced Air Defense, AAD. This program, the Ballistic Missile Defense Program, the BMD program, also includes an overlapping network. Of early warning and tracking radars. Because if an enemy launches a satellite, it doesn't need human control. It automatically tracks the enemy missiles and fires and salvo to intercept the enemy missile in mid-air, and both will explode, so that we will be shielded. So it also includes, the system also includes a network of early warning and tracking radars, as well as command and control posts. Now, what is the status? PAD was successfully tested in 2006 and AAD in the next year, 2007. Prithvi Air Defense in 2006 was successfully tested and AAD to be tested in 2007. With this, India became the fourth country to have a ballistic missile defense after US, Russia and Israel. Now this is about the program, some points about the program. Now we have to speak about security. Its importance to the national security, strategic importance. So the defense system, it provides a multi-layered capability. The defense system provides a multi-layered capability of defense against the medium and long-range ballistic missiles. It provides a defense 2000 to 5000, right? Medium range to long range ballistic missiles. It provides a multi-layered capability of defense against medium layered and long range ballistic missiles, particularly against any threat from Pakistan. That's the first importance to the national security. The second is, this system also protects India from any rogue attacks. Well, there is always a clamor, it didn't happen, but there is always a clamor and a talk that Pakistan is under a military rule, also actively supporting terrorism. There is always a threat, there is always a fear that those missiles and the nuclear warheads at any time can fall on the terrorist hands, which will threaten the security of the country. So in case missile systems or the nuclear warhead operation falls under the terrorist, this provides the security. So it prevents any missile attacks from rogue hands. That's the first. It also creates 24/7 automatic vigilance system. The ballistic missile defense creates a 24/7 automatic vigilance system with no human efforts involved. It will automatically defend against any missile attacks. The importance of the system. And the next is, India is situated in a very volatile geostrategic location, with warmongering and flexing of muscles become the norms. Warmongering and the flexing of muscles become the norms. Such a defense system is a credible deterrence. Right? Warmongering and flexing of muscles. On one side, one country speaks about they will launch attack at any time, and another country says, please remember 1962. So when you are located in such a country, such a geopolitical, very volatile situation, such a defense shield is very, very crucial, very, very important. Also, there is a last important point. This shield reinforces no first use policy. See, no first use policy is criticized. It is one of the most moderate policy on using nuclear warheads. But no first use means you should survive a nuclear attack. Only then you can use it, right? What if the first attack itself demolishes you? So we need credible protection against any attack. Only then you will attack next. Right. So this shield, ballistic missile shield, reinforces no first use policy. The next one, 13th question, the recently unveiled India's first National Intellectual Property Rights Policy 2016 emphasizes, now we are asking a particular point. Now this is what I say specific question. Now you have to know about the contours of IPR policy 2016. In that IPR 16, there were 7 objectives. One of the objectives is commercialization of patents. Commercialization of IPR, intellectual property rights. The question particularly picks that and asks you. That emphasizes the concept of commercialization of intellectual property right. Do you think that this part of the question has anything to do with the question? This part. It is a mere statement. The policy emphasizes the concept, that's what. It didn't ask you anything to do with it. But follow the question, it says, what is the relevance of this concept? Now this is where the question actually begins. So it is emphasized in the policy. Now it says, what is the relevance of this concept? The concept of commercialization of IPR to the innovation climate in India. The question asked, think it from a common person. Oh, do we want to commercialize the IPR? We have to commercialize the IPR. Everybody should work for patents. And everybody should register patents. And everybody should sell the patents. This is what commercialization means. Okay, so by doing that, what will happen? Do you think innovation will be, so everybody will see the patent. Oh, he is getting a patent. What I will also do, I will also have a small instrument to collect a dog poop and I will patent it. Oh fine, commercialization of patents. You understand? Example. So commercialization of patents will it promote innovation in India, question particularly in India. So out of 7 objectives, one is commercialization of patents. How the commercialization of patents or general IPR will promote innovation? You think from a common person. That's the first part. The second, what will be the concerns due to this concept? What the commercialization of patents, identify the concerns on the applicability of commercialization of patents, commercialization of IPR. Is it actually possible in India? Is it what is needed in India? Can we commercialize? You understand the question? Right. So India had entered the regime of intellectual property rights protection in 1970 with the enactment of Indian Patent Act 1970. That's the first time India knew what an IPR is. So India entered the regime in 1970. But since 1970, there is no policy to guide governmental actions and private sector R&D. There is no policy to guide the governmental actions and private sector R&D. There is no policy to guide. So after very long years, India released its first IPR policy in 2016. It's a late and the latest step. It's a late and the latest step in bringing out a policy on IPR. If you bring Aristotle into this concept, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. According to Aristotle, he mentions that patience is bitter. It's very, very hard to be patient, but its fruit is sweet. So these words of Aristotle is very much applicable to the IPR policy 2016, which provided valuable guidelines in ushering innovation to the India, in bringing innovation to the country. Fine. Let's always start with the sweet. Then we'll provide the bitter. Okay, first sweet. So the policy generally, it recognizes the abundance The policy recognizes the abundance and innovative energies that flows in India. The policy, it recognizes the abundance and innovative energies that flows in India and aims to capture it. And aims to capture that such energies, innovative energies, it aims to capture through this policy. The policy has 7 objectives, as I said earlier. The 7 objectives will be provided in the PDF. But out of the 7 objectives of the policy, the 5th one is a commercialization of the IPR. So the 5th objective of the policy stands as the commercialization of IPR, which acquires a special importance. This 5th objective acquires a special importance. That's the beginning. Now we are going about the relevance of the concept to the, see, I have given you a long statement, but this introduction, when you write it in answer, make sure that you finish it within 3 or 4 lines. That's the space you have. Because the first 2 lines has nothing to do with the question, as I said earlier, it has nothing to do. The question starts only from what is the relevance of this concept. That is where the question begins. So commercialization of IPR, the relevance of this. So according to the IPR policy 2016, according to this policy, when an IPR will benefit the owners, see, I'm inventing a new good. I also got a patent. But when I will benefit from the patent, I have to start making goods out of that. And I will fix a price, a monopolistic price, where there is no competition at all. So the benefit of a patent, the benefit of an IPR, it begins only with the commercialization of the invention. Only when the commercialization of the invention, it will benefit the owners, is it not? Otherwise it's a mere certificate. A patent is nothing but a certificate. It doesn't benefit. The real benefit starts only when the commercialization of IPR begins. So, such a commercialization will kickstart further inventions, further innovations, bringing the fruits of knowledge, to the society. This is how commercialization will bring benefit. More commercialization, more benefit, and others will also see it seems to be very beneficial. Others also will pursue innovation, which will bring the overall collective fruits of knowledge, the overall collective fruits of science to the society. Now, in general, it is only few large organizations, in the Indian conditions, only large organizations and multinational companies have the capacities to patent their technologies. So, in such a setting, where it is limited only registering the patent and commercializing them, is limited only to large corporations. So understanding this drawback, the policy aims to bring in the commercialization to all public. It's not only limited to large corporations, commercialization should be brought to all. That's what the policy speaks. Not only the private organizations who are having a large conglomerate, who have a money power that they can register a patent and commercialize. Everybody who can innovate should commercialize. That's the second aspect of the policy, importance. Such innovation climate started by commercialization will result in trickling effect. Like there is an overall upsurge in innovation. So such an overall upsurge in innovation will result in nation's growth, nation's economic growth overall. So despite this, commercialization of IPR also comes with its own challenges. So the next part of the question, we are addressing the concerns. So what are the concerns of commercialization? So this concerns of the commercialization mainly aims from a particular disorder that our public spending laboratories are facing. CSAR labs, or we can say more particularly CSAR labs are facing. It's called as compulsive patent holding disorder. Don't think it's a disease. It's a name you're given to that. Compulsive patent hoarding, H-O-A-R-D, hoarding disorder. In CSAR labs, scientists are compelled to register patents without which the spending, the fund for the projects are curtailed. So, the fund for the scientific projects and the patent registration are interlinked. It is on the belief. Why funding is linked to patents. So CSAR labs and the funding to the projects are linked to the patents on the belief that it will result in generating IP assets in the country. We believe that there will be more IP assets, intellectual property assets will increase in our country. It is believed. But what happened is, this compulsive patent holding disorder, rather it created a biodata disorder. This in turn created a disorder called as biodata disorder, where it became a practice among the scientists, Indian scientists, that to mention the number of patents they hold in their biodata, rather than making actual contribution to the society through their inventions. Rather than making actual contributions to the society, they rather useful only in adding to their biodata, a biodata disorder. They are compelled to make patents, and the patents which is not useful to the society. This is one of the result of commercialization of patents. Now we are having more patents with no usefulness. For example, there is, according to CSIR, in the last 3 years, CSIR has registered 13,000 patents. CSIR has registered 13,000 patents at the cost of rupees 50 crores, at the cost of rupees 50 crores. It is not easy, it is not cheap. To register a patent and to maintain a patent is a costly affair. So CSIR is maintaining such a huge volume of patents with no obvious advantage to the society. 13,000 patents, what are we getting out of these patents? Nothing. They only add value to the biodata. These patents add value only to the biodata of the scientists. So this is one of the outcome of commercialization of patents. One outcome. The second, so what needs to be done? So much of the fruits of the present day science, the present day technology, is because of open sourced inventions. Most of the notable inventions that we use nowadays, they were not patented. They were openly available to the public domain. So what needs to be done? So scientific inventions and their patent must be left open at the discretion of the scientist. That should be done. It's not like they have to be compelled. Always register for patent and try to sell the patent. If the patent is not valid, who will buy it? Nobody will buy it. So it has to be left at the discretion of the scientist, not that they should be compelled. Otherwise what will happen? We have to spend more and more for the registration of patents with no obvious use. So that's the first one. The second is, even there are even many concerns among the US universities that now they are slowly bringing down the patent registration. US universities, they are notable in the patent registrations. The top leader in the patent registration in the world is US. Even the US universities are bringing down the patent registration on account of increased cost. But how India can commercialize? Okay. The next is, there is inequality. There is inequality in India in various phases. In such an unequal climate, patenting regime brings monopoly. It furthers inequality. So what is required is the spearheading of equality, at least in terms of inventions. at least in terms of innovation. Rather than monopolizing innovations, it has to be socialized. It is not monopolizing, but the innovations has to be socialized. Such a socialization of innovation cannot be done by commercialization. Right. So, what is the end point we can say on this? India is a technology dependent country and technology deficient country. It's not only that we depend on technology, we are also deficient in technology. A technology dependent and technology deficient country, India cannot afford for blind patenting of innovations. We cannot just let them go for blind patenting of IPR, intellectual property rights. Rather, it has to focus on technology transfers. Now, what is required in the Indian climate is strengthening the technology transfers and its dissemination to small and micro enterprises. It is this dissemination which is required. Not like one will have a patent and everybody will go behind them. That's not the case which is required. So this is what the consequence of commercialization of patents that might occur in a country, right? The next is geographical indications, 15 minutes. Okay, I have to go a little faster. So, is geographical indications protected under TRIPS agreement? A straightforward question. There is no complication here also. In what way geographical indications are different from other conventional intellectual property rights? I hope you know one example that you can give for geographical indications. Any example? Banaras silk, Mysore silk, Madurai Malli, right? There is a name. It's a name. Geographical indications is a name. What other form of IPR has only a name? Trademark, right? Trademark is also a name. So, most often what is required is that geographical indications must be protected from abusing in the name of trademark. So, when we say compare geographical indications with other IPR, they literally ask you what? Compare GI with trademark. The question asks you particularly that. Because GI is a name, trademark is also a name. Right. So, sometimes question will ask indirectly also. You understand what I am saying? Right. So, is geographical indications protected under TRIPS agreement? Is it protected under TRIPS? Yes. So, geographical indication, what is GI? It is a sign used on products. Remember, it is not used on services. GI is only for goods. GI is a sign used on goods that has a specific geographical origin. It's a sign, it's a name. Sign used on goods that has a specific geographical origin and has unique characters. Due to the place of their origin. It is because of the place of origin it has a unique characters. Okay. So this is about GI. So under what provisions, under what articles of TRIPS that it is protected? Article 23 and 22 and 23. Article 22 of TRIPS, which confines standard level of protection to GI. Which confers standard level of protection to GI to preventing unfair competition. Article 22 of TRIPS, standard level of protection to prevent unfair competition. This is actually statement names. It means what? Unfair competition from trademark. That's what that completes the statement. Article 23. Article 23, it provides enhanced GI protection for two goods, wine and spirits, that originates from European nations. So there is a special protection which is higher than the GI tag for other goods. So there is an enhanced protected status given for wines and spirits that is manufactured from the European countries. This pertains to Article 23. Article 22, every other GI product. Article 23, wines and spirit. So these were the two articles of TRIPS that confers protection to GI. Now, the difference of GI compared with the rest of IPR, patent, copyright, trademark, industrial designs, so many and so forth. The one important point is, usually we know IPR basically is a monopolistic right. It is a right owned by an individual or a body of an individual. An individual, or we can say body or group. It's a right owned by a person or a group of persons. Other forms of IPR, it's a right owned by persons or a group of persons. But GI, geographical indication, is a collective right owned by the people of the region. That's one of the most important difference. It is a right owned by all who are living in Kanjipuram, in making Kanjipuram silk. No one person can claim that this art belongs only to me. It belongs, it's a social right, while that is a monopolistic right. Other forms of IPR is a monopolistic right, GI is a social right. That's the first difference. The second difference is, while both GI, goods, and trademark, both GI and trademark are called as product identifiers. Coca-Cola, it identifies a product. Mysore silk, it identifies a product. Both GI and trademark are product identifiers, but the difference is a GI cannot be used as a trademark. The difference is they both are product identifiers, but a GI cannot be used as a trademark. So GI can be used only for a product that emerges from a particular place. It has to be used only in the instance of a good that emerges from a particular place, but nowhere else. But what about trademark? It identifies a product that emerges from a particular company. GI from a particular region. Trademark from a particular company. That's the second important difference. And third, let's say that Pepsi is a trademark of a particular company. They can sell it to any person, and that second person can use a trademark. He can sell it to another person. He can sell it. Trademark can be traded or sold to a third party. Trademark can be sold or traded to a third party. But can the people of Kanjipuram can sell to another region? No. GI cannot be traded. Geographical indication cannot be traded, while trademark can be traded. Right? So these are the important differences between GI and rest of the IPR, particularly trademark. Question number 17. An increasing maritime navigation poses the dangers of marine pollution due to oil spills affecting the marine biodiversity. It just gives you information. Navia navigation went wrong. Because of that, so many ships are plying on the seas, which results in marine pollution. There is nothing more than that. It's just an information. So block it, analyze the impact of marine oil spill. Yes, question starts only from here. Analyze the impacts of marine oil spill on marine ecosystem. First part, and provide the mechanisms available in India to deal with such disasters. We already say that we have to understand first general questions and specific questions. In this, analyze the impact of marine oil spill. I think this is a general part. You can generally write about the impact of marine pollution. There is no need for any specific facts. But provide the mechanisms available in India. Now this is specific. You should know what are all the initiatives or what are all the programs in India that deals with oil disasters, oil spills in the country. So probably everybody can attend the first part. And the second part, so don't leave the question. If you come across this question, if you think that provide the mechanisms available, you can write involvement of NGOs. At least you can write even the Chennai oil spill, local NGOs were involved. You can write 1 or 2 points. Don't leave a question. But the point is, it's a specific point. It requires a specific point. But the first part is generalistic. At least attend the first part. Don't leave the question. Right. So whenever you identify a question as general, you should never leave the question. You should never leave it. Keep that always in mind, don't leave it. So, an oil spill, what impacts it can make. So, I am cutting out all, I have very little time, sir is waiting, so I'll say the general damages of oil spill. Due to oil spill, the toxic components will enter the marine food chain. First impact, it will enter the marine food chain, which will enter the land food chain also, terrestrial food chain also. Once it enters the marine food chain, people will catch the aquatic products. It will enter the marine terrestrial food chain also. So entering the food chain is the one impact. The second impact, the thick slick oil layer prevents the entry of sunlight and hence prevents photosynthesis, preventing photosynthesis of phytoplanktons. That's the second impact. The third impact, oil, it's inflammable. There is a fire threat. There is a threat of fire during oil spills. Second, most of the times, oil spill, if it happens with recovery platforms, oil recovery platforms, most of the times there is a fire. When you report a fire in the oil recovery platforms, it is not just due to fire. Spill would have occurred, which later resulted in ignition in the high sunlight. It results in auto ignition. That resulted in fire. Most of the times, fire in oil platforms would have been preceded by a spill. So, oil spill, marine oil spill also poses a danger of fire threats. Fire threat is a third impact, and the next is with a thick oil on the top of the seas, it blocks the effective circulation of temperatures. It blocks the temperature circulation within the water, which severely affects the marine life. It blocks the temperature circulation. By blocking the temperature circulation, it seriously affects the marine life. And the last but not the least, impact on tourism. Impact on tourism. When there is an oil spill at a tourist spot, it negatively inspires the tourist to visit the place. Impact on tourism, or we can say negative impact on tourism better. So what are the mechanisms we have? As I said earlier, what I said is only generalistic points. If you have some other points that how it will impact on marine life, you can add. It's a general part. Now comes the specific part. What are the initiatives done by the country? First, Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, what it does? Forecasting oil spills. That's one initiative. By forecasting oil spills, that it enables our governments to take preventive actions. But I don't know whether it functions. The second is National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan. The second initiative we have, National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan, with 50% support for equipments. With 50% support for equipments from central government. But the point is, the drawback of the plan is that it is followed only in the spirit but not in letters. It is followed only in the spirit but not in letters, and most often oil spills are carried out by the local volunteers. Oil spill are dealt by the local volunteers with a poor protective gears. They volunteer for the act, but they themselves are exposed to the toxic content of the oil spill. So it is not followed. The disaster contingency plan, it is not followed. The next is, India is also a signatory to Convention for Prevention of Pollution. Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships. It's also called as MARPOL, Marine Pollution, MARPOL Convention, 1973, and Convention for Civil Liability. Convention for civil liability for bunker oil. For bunker oil pollution damage. So these conventions have provided institutional mechanisms. India signatory to this provided institutional mechanisms and centralization agencies to get involved in oil disaster plans, oil disaster management plans. So these are the initiatives we have. But despite that, actually the answer should end by this. But I'm saying we are going little extra. But despite this, we have a failure still. The main reason because non-compliance of the port authorities. There is a non-compliance of the port authorities on such plans. The next is inadequate measures put in place by the district administration on the coastal states. Marine oil spill has to be a part of the problem of the coastal states, not all. So district administration is criticized for putting in place inadequate measures where oil spill is most probable to occur. The next is 19th one. In the pursuit of development, the vulnerability to various hazards increases. Okay, in the pursuit of development, the vulnerability to various hazards increases. In the context of recent Raj Mahal coal mining accident, assess the causes and remedies to avoid mining-related disasters in India. Raj Mahal coal mine collapse, it occurred in December 2016. Now, disasters, the topic is in a way that the commonly recognized disasters must be understood, like earthquakes, flooding, drought. In addition to that, you also have to have to equip yourself and prepare for the most recently emerging accidents, like train accidents, crowd stampedes. So these are the new and emerging form. And poor preparation during tourism, like Amarnath Yatra. There is very many accidents every year during this pilgrimage. It is also to be considered as a disaster. So wherever there is a huge loss of life, let's not worry about what the definition of disaster means. If there is a huge loss of lives and property, consider it's a disaster. And when it occurs again and again, it says that there is a poor planning in place. So in the context, there are so many new accidents considered, like road accidents also in a way to be considered as a disaster. So road accidents, mountain road accidents, loss of lives. Even health infrastructure, the very way that we maintain a health infrastructure also is a disaster. So try to see the word disaster in multiple aspects, multiple dimensions. That way we can expect a question from unexpected areas. So this is in one such question. The coal mine incident, the collapse of the coal mine, can we consider it as a disaster or not is not the question. 23 lives were lost due to the inadvertent adherence of the policies. It is a disaster. Right. So it is in this context. So the first part, in the pursuit of development, the vulnerability to various hazard increases. It has nothing to do with the answer that you have to give. As we said earlier, it sets the stage. It says that development, the road to development we pursue now. The road to development we pursue now has lot of twists and turns. Such twists and turns in the road to development creates vulnerabilities. Such creation of the vulnerabilities accumulates in the long run. At an opportune moment, these vulnerabilities transform themselves into disasters. So in our developmental path, we are generating and accumulating vulnerabilities. It is these vulnerabilities which makes us prone to disasters. So that's a theme. That's what the first statement speaks about. So Raj Mahal coal mining accident, December 2016. Now, according to media quoting official reports, in 2016, there were 65 lives lost due to coal mine collapses. Due to coal mine collapses in the last year, 2016, 65 lives have been lost. After the Rajasthan coal mine collapse, there was an official release by Director General of Mines Safety. What he has mentioned is very eye-opening. Director General of Mines Safety has recorded that the Rajasthan mine collapse was not a complex technical issue. It is not due to complex technical issue it collapsed. Director General of Mine Safety has recorded that the mine collapse was not due to complex technical issue but a pure neglect of basic safety principles. But because of the neglect of basic safety principles, that collapse had occurred. So when we speak about causes and remedies, that neglect of principle, safety principle is a prime reason why such collapses occurs. Neglect of the safety principles. Even from official circles it is noted. Okay, so what are the important situations that exist in the coal mines? Very poor safety conditions for the workers. I'm just listing out very generally. Poor safety conditions, very poor safety conditions, abysmal safety conditions for the workers. Mines are public owned. But such a public owned mines, part of the work is contracted to private sector. Contracting to the private sector, who in turn, in the name of cost cutting, plays with the safety principles. In the name of cost cutting, the private contractors, the private players plays with the safety principles. In the name of cost cutting. That's the second thing that is emerging. Then environmental degradation in the coal mining areas that paves way for future disasters. Environmental degradation, violation of human rights, or we can say this another way, inhuman working conditions. Violation of human rights, particularly right to live with dignity. Right to live with dignity, inhuman working conditions. They are all the same. And corruption in the project sanctions are the important issues identified in the mining operations. There's one point also to mention. It's an ironic point also. Ironically, coal mines, within brackets nationalization, Coal Mines Act of 1973, Coal Mines Nationalization Act of 1973, this act, Coal Mines Nationalization Act 1973, the act took mines out from the private sectors. Earlier it was owned by the private sector also. It is this act nationalized mines in the country. It took mines from the private sectors on the basis of the assumption that private sectors were laxative in adhering to rules and safety conditions. They don't adhere to the rules and the safety condition. It is based on this assumption that the mines are taken out of the private hands and nationalized. But now, even in a public owned mining system, so since 1973 it is public owned, but even in a public owned mining system, we have gone a full circle. We have gone a full circle with the contracts doled out to the private players. Once again it is becoming private. Contracts given to the private players without any improvement in safety conditions. It's a old condition. The only difference is earlier it was private owned and now it is public owned. We went to a full circle. So there is another report also which speaks about the causes. According to Human Rights Watch report 2012. Human Rights Watch report 2012, mines are operated with violation of the rules. Mines are operated with the violation of rules with the complete impunity. According to this report, mines are operated with the violation of rules with complete impunity. Nobody to ask a question. Impunity. So these are the reasons The question also asks about suggestions. What else need to be done? So, the question is not, as of now, the question is not about whether the mines in our country is not public owned or private owned. The question in our country right now is not whether the mines are public owned or private owned, but it needs a multi-pronged strategy. It doesn't matter who is the owner. It needs a multi-pronged strategy that encompasses occupational safety principles. That encompasses occupational safety principles and protection of the rights of the workers. And protection of the rights of the workers, it has to encompass. Then next important suggestion is evolving SOP, standard operating procedure. Evolving SOP for mining and its monitoring by the Ministry of Mines. SOP should be evolved and it has to be adhered to. Such adherence should be monitored by Ministry of Mines. Then deployment of safety officers. Wherever there are mining operations, safety officers should be deployed with necessary skill and experience. Deployment of safety officers with the necessary skill and experience to deal with any vulnerabilities of mining. Then human working conditions for the workers or dignified working conditions given to the laborers, ensuring the right to life, without resorting to cost-cutting measures. What is required to be given to a worker to ensure that their life is protected, that they are treated with dignity, without any cost-cutting shortcuts. This also should be ensured. And developing in-house expertise. They don't have to depend on National Disaster Management Authority or some other authority. So each mining operation should develop an in-house expertise. They need to develop an in-house expertise to deal with the sudden dangers like mudslides. They have to develop an in-house expertise. So these could be the suggestions we can include for that, for the how to deal with the issues. Okay. And the last question, explain the role of disaster risk reduction in the sustainable management of disasters. What are the initiatives taken by India in this regard? So disaster risk, what are the disaster risks? Disaster risk refers to vulnerabilities. So disaster risk reduction means reduction of vulnerabilities. That's what DRR refers to. So what DRR means, it aims to reduce disaster risk reduction. It aims to reduce the damages caused by disasters. It aims to reduce the damages caused by the disasters through what? Through an ethics of prevention. It is not that we have to respond to disasters. We have to prevent the disasters. So from an ethics of prevention, when the damage caused by the disasters are reduced, it is called as disaster risk reduction, an ethics of prevention. That's a crux of DRR. Disasters most often follow natural hazards. First, what happens is hazard. What happens next is a disaster. Earthquake, it occurs. But what happens after an earthquake is a collapse of the building, and collapse of the building will result in loss of lives. What happens first is hazards. So disasters follow the hazards. It is not hazards will follow the disaster. The inverse is true. Disasters follow the hazards. So what it means? A disaster's severity. How can we say how severe a disaster is? It is not depending upon the severity of the hazard. A disaster severity does not depend upon hazard severity. Vulnerability, exactly. So a disaster's severity depends upon the accumulated vulnerabilities of the region. The accumulated vulnerabilities of the region determines the disaster severity. So disaster risk reduction aims to cut short, to reduce those vulnerabilities as a pre-disaster prevention and mitigation. as a pre-disaster prevention and mitigation. That's what DRR means. The final point in DRR, while it is accepted that hazards cannot be dealt with, we will face earthquakes, we will face floods, you cannot deal with it. While hazards cannot be dealt with or managed by society, disasters can be managed. Hazards cannot be managed while disasters can be managed. So disasters can be managed through disaster risk reduction. It is through DRR that disaster can be managed. Hazards cannot be managed. There is no possibility we can deal with hazards. So now that's the first part. The role of DRR in disaster management, these are the points. Now what are the initiatives taken by India? Now the first one is very generalistic, as I said earlier, and the second one is specific. This question is a little specific. So what are the important initiatives? Recently, India was the first country to come up with a national plan. India was the first country to come up with a national plan and a local strategy. To come up with a national plan and a local strategy for disaster risk reduction. It's the first country. No other country had developed a national plan and a local strategy for disaster risk reduction, and submitted the same at 2017 Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, DRR. At the 2017 Global Platform for DRR. It is for its pioneering role that India was widely lauded for being the first country and the role model. First country and a role model in taking initiatives in this sector, in this field of DRR. India was the first country to have a national plan and a local strategy for DRR. So that's the first initiative. And the second, India also is the first country to frame a national framework, to establish a national framework under Sendai Agreement. Under Sendai Agreement, SCNDAI, Sendai Agreement, with a short-term goal plan, for the year 2020. I hope you know Sendai Agreement, the objective is to be reached by 2030, right? So 2030 with a short-term goal being 2020. India is the first country to establish a framework for Sendai Agreement by 2030 and a short-term plan by 2020. So in addition to this, Prime Minister also unveiled 10-point agenda for DRR. In addition to that, Prime Minister also unveiled 10-point agenda for DRR. So what is the 10-point? As I said earlier, it will be given in the PDF. So what are the 10-point agenda given out by the Prime Minister with respect to disaster risk reduction? It is provided in the PDF that will be uploaded. Then finally, such efforts that India has conducted wide forums and international conferences on DRR, providing a leadership in this growing recognition. So India provides a leadership role in the field of DRR by taking these important initiatives. There is another initiative also called as National Platform, an initiative taken by India called as National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction started on February 2013. So this platform converges multiple stakeholders. This platform converges multiple stakeholders from the government to the local communities. It converges various stakeholders. It's a convergence platform from the government to the local stakeholders, local communities, to brainstorm ideas and bring an awareness on this area. There is another program also run by the country called as Disaster Risk Reduction Program. That under World Meteorological Organization, disaster risk reduction program under World Meteorological Organization, which is run in India also. So these are important initiatives taken by India in the field of disaster risk reduction. So we can conclude that India has clearly shown enthusiasm and leadership. In the realm of DRR, disaster risk reduction, India clearly showed leadership and enthusiasm in reducing disaster risks. It is vital that such enthusiasm is consistent and continued in the future. We can end that way.